Minister, our society is very much lessened by the creeping incitement to hatred that has increased over recent years. And while social media is often blamed, and rightly so, it speeds up the toxicity of spreading hate speech. But it's not the only the cause. And often headlines are written in our so-called reputable press that covertly and sometimes overtly incite hatred as well. And I think we must look right across the board and we must hold people accountable. And that's why I welcome this common legal framework to combat hate. Because, as you rightly say, hate speech is often used as a way of making people afraid, and you make people afraid because then it's easier to control them and to control their thinking. So I very much welcome this. Hate speech has no place inside politics or outside politics, and I have seen it since coming to this House in terms of things that are often said in this chamber that really people need to be held accountable for. During the COVID pandemic, again, we saw that it was used by extreme ideological movements to spread hatred across a whole range of grounds, of religion, of race, of sex and sexual orientation. When I talk about hate crime as well, I always remember Sophie Lancaster. Sophie Lancaster was a 20-year-old young woman who was kicked to death for looking different. And we did much work in the community in Mayo with the Sophie Lancaster Foundation and with her mum, Sylvia. And we went into the schools as well to use the toolkit they had provided, which was the acronym for Sophie in Stamp Out Hatred and Intolerance Everywhere. And I welcome the domestic legislation that's going to follow. We absolutely need to get it right. But then we need to ensure that it permeates right down into our schools and into our wider communities, because hate speech has no place in our communities, no place in our country, and certainly people who spread it must be held accountable. And I think this will allow us to do that. You know, attempts to dehumanise, degenerate or to spread fear and hateful with those with opposing views or those who somehow we perceive as being different has to stop. And it has to stop right across this island as well. And we have to call it out. Sometimes we choose to ignore it in certain quarters while we focus on it in other quarters. So this is a very important step forward in a longer journey that we will all do together to hopefully bring in legislation that will stamp out hatred and intolerance everywhere.